Ja, oh ja. Okay, can you hear me? Despite the hail? Can you hear me clearly? Right. Someone asked, when the teaching starts, please SMS. Does anyone use? Okay. Whoa, I mean, what is this? Winter rain or summer rain? All right. Great. Let's start with the prayers. Okay. Okay. Wait, I'll just put my phone on. Yeah. So as you all know, very important to generate the right kind of motivation. It makes all the difference if we have a specific type of motivation dedicated towards the benefit of all sentient beings. So if you can generate great compassion and even more so, even better, the aspiration, the wish to become fully enlightened for the benefit of all sentient beings. It may feel fake, never mind. Do the best that you can. So we start with refuge in bodhicitta. Then there's the four immeasurables. Even if you don't have the prayer, just think of the words, reflect on the words. May all sentient beings have happiness and the causes of happiness and so forth, just to deepen, to strengthen your compassion for others. Okay. And then lastly, we pay homage to the perfection of wisdom, the female Buddha, the perfection of wisdom. That is actually, she stands for the perfection of wisdom sutras. She's symbolic for the sutras that the Buddha taught, especially on emptiness, on selflessness, and so forth. That's the last verse. So the first we do 3 times. Okay. So I'll just read it. Until I reach enlightenment, I take refuge in the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By accumulating merit and wisdom through generosity and the other perfections, may I attain Buddhahood for the benefit of all sentient beings. Until I reach enlightenment, I take refuge in the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By accumulating merit and wisdom through generosity and the other perfections, may I attain Buddhahood for the benefit of all sentient beings. Until I reach enlightenment, I take refuge in the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By accumulating merit and wisdom through generosity and the other perfections, may I attain Buddhahood for the benefit of all sentient beings. May all sentient beings have happiness and the causes of happiness. May all sentient beings be free from suffering and the causes of suffering. May all sentient beings never be separated from the happiness that is free from suffering. May all sentient beings abide in equanimity, free from attachment and anger that holds some close and others distant. I pay homage to the sublime mother of the victorious ones of the 3 times, the inexpressible, inconceivable, and indescribable perfection of wisdom, which is unborn, unceasing, and of the nature of space, and which is the object of realization of the self-knowing primordial wisdom. Okay. Now we'll start today with a new material, starting on page 125. Different from last year. Last year, for the second term, actually I started preparing material only for the second term. For the first term I had nothing. I had injured my arm, I couldn't type, so yeah, there was no material. But once it got better, then I decided for the second term, I need something. Otherwise, it's very difficult for everyone. I mean, for me, it's really hard to prepare. For you, it's difficult to follow. So I started with the summary of the first term and then with the actual material of the second term. So this year, there was a summary of this first and second term, which we just went through recently during the last 3 classes. And for today, I decided I just continue with the same material from last year, the class material. So that's what goes up to page 124. And then continue with the third term, spring 2025. Okay. Now this is, as before, it's Acharya Chandrakirti's root text with Lama Tsongkhapa's commentary. The text that for generations has been studied in the Gelug tradition for the study of the middle way, for the study of Madhyamika. So many monastics in nunnery, well, less in nunneries, unfortunately, but definitely in the great monasteries, the bigger monasteries, the smaller ones, have studied exactly this text. And what is inspiring, if you look at the lamas of this particular tradition, and of course the other traditions, Sakya, Nyingma, Kagyu, they've also studied Chandrakirti's text, but not with the commentary of Lama Tsongkhapa, I suppose. Maybe privately, who knows. But the point is that all the great lamas of the past have at the very least studied Acharya Chandrakirti's text of the Tibetan tradition in the past, and in India as well. So it goes a long way back, and many of those masters have realized emptiness. Now that is inspiring for us to understand how phenomena really exist on their ultimate level. They have followed this particular text and possibly Lama Tsongkhapa's commentary, which means we have some hope. As in, like, if we study this text, we may gain the same understanding. Yeah.
Which text are you using now?
Oh, are you in the group? Are you in the WhatsApp group?
Yes, I have a lot of text, but no text without these 152 pages.
Oh, are you in the WhatsApp group?
Yes.
Yes. So today I posted both texts. I posted both texts this morning. Let me check.
I just reposted it. Huh? I just reposted it. Are you familiar?
Yes.
So this is the text with
Yes,
148?
that 148, we are in page
PDF
120.
pages.
Yes, 148 pages. This is the material.
152?
No, we start on the 125 today. We start there.
25?
Yes, 125. So we start there, and then I prepared the first 24 pages. I've got more, but I'm still working on it. So I'll post it as we go along.
So this is not the new text, no?
Pardon?
So this is a summary.
That's not the summary. No, the summary's got only 24 pages. So we're done with the summary. And now
So this is a new text.
it's got the root text. It's got all three. All three means, well, it's got Acharya Chandrakirti. Okay, let me explain this. So the blue letters, everything that is in blue letters is Acharya Chandrakirti's text, right? It's in blue. You can see blue. And then you've got the bold, it's in bold and blue. Then that which is in black, bold, oh no, sorry, I should say this. Blue, bold, and italics, right? In italics, bold, and blue is the root text. In italics, bold, and black is Lama Tsongkhapa's text. So you've got both these two texts. Usually what I do is I basically just cite them. Whatever is in the translation.
Black text. I have not red, no, I have just blue, black text.
All right, okay. We'll find it.
I have a PDF.
On page 125.
On page 120, yeah, if you go to page 125,
When I go through,
125.
should be blue. Is it not blue?
it is
Okay, I'll check my own version in here. I mean, unless the blue doesn't come through. Oh, it's not blue, is it?
Yes, it's blue.
It is blue? Okay.
125 and blue.
Oh yeah, here's blue.
Blue is what?
I'll repeat it. The blue text is Acharya Chandakirti's Entering the Middle Way. That is the root text, Acharya Chandakirti's root text. And then the bold black underneath it is Lama Tsongkhapa's text. But then you may wonder, why is there blue in Lama Tsongkhapa's text? Because Lama Tsongkhapa uses the root text and then explains it. So usually in the Tibetan text, when they do it, sometimes they highlight it, sometimes they don't. But it's just helpful to see how Lama Tsongkhapa explains the root text with the blue in between. Does that make sense? You've got it? Okay, great. So, and what you see just above that are the headings of the outlines. So Lama Tsongkhapa gives topical outlines, which the Indian masters traditionally didn't used to. Probably wasn't necessary because people grasp the text in such a way. Like we usually say this, I don't know whether this is always true, but at the time of the Buddha, people's capacity of understanding the Dharma was outstanding. Their minds were very focused, they were well trained, as in like the classical Indian tradition of single-pointed meditation or meditation in general. Many of them were experts. And so they were really, ripe for the teachings in that they understood them really clearly. But this has degenerated over time. So when the Buddha taught in a few words, people understood what he was saying. But through time, it is said that, as I said, that understanding had that degenerated and more explanation needed to be given. And so at the time when Buddhism came to Tibet, well, just a few words, short texts was not enough. Now you got longer commentaries explaining certain things in more detail, and having outlines made it easier. And nowadays, I mean, look, at the 21st century, our attention span, not really great. So we read our messages, but who reads books and stuff, right? So more explanation is kind of needed, and it's become harder. So anyway, so you end up having more and more explanation, but the point is that eventually we should go back, of course, to the Buddha's teachings. I stressed that last time. But what Lama Tsongkhapa did more than around 600 years ago, no, less than 600 years ago, what he did was he provided us with these outlines, and they are underlined. So this is Lama Tsongkhapa's text, the qualities that outshine others' mental continuum. That's Lama Tsongkhapa. And then he has these outlines, how on this ground, on that first ground, hearers and solitude realizers are outshone by means of the Bodhisattva's lineage. Okay, so there's a weird term, to outshine someone. But this is literally what the text says in Tibetan as well. It's also a weird term in Tibetan. You don't talk like that when you speak to a Tibetan, actually. So it's very kind of specific. It's just another way of saying surpass. How they're superior in their understanding, bodhisattvas on this level. Even those great foundational vehicle practitioners, the hearers and solitude realizers, because of their attainments, because of this bodhisattva lineage. Then how on the first level, by means of what is called the bodhisattva lineage, by means of bodhicitta, in other words. And on the seventh ground, they are greater than hearers and solitude, or they outshine or surpass hearers and solitude realizers by means of their understanding of emptiness, by means of their intelligence. Here, intelligence is not, but the translator uses intelligence. So it's just a specific kind of understanding of the ultimate nature of reality. But it needs to be explained. Okay. So and then there are some concluding implications of these statements. All right. So now, the first of these four outlines is headed with, on this ground, on this first ground, hearers and solitary realizers are surpassed, are outshone by means of the Bodhisattva's lineage. Okay. Now I want to say something before we start, because I want you to get more involved. It's such dry and weird material initially. You need to get used to it. But to make it a little juicier, there's something we mentioned before, and the text refers back to it, back to what we did last year. Lama Tsongkhapa, based on what Acharya Chandrakirti said, he explained that a bodhisattva on that particular level. So, what is that level? Path of seeing. Remember, there are 4 levels of a bodhisattva. What are they? Path of accumulation, path of preparation, path of seeing, path of meditation. 4 levels. Okay. So the first and the second are pretty great, but wow, path of seeing is really impressive, because on the path of seeing, they realize emptiness directly. Everything else they were able to do, they're able to do even better. Their love, compassion, all that is much stronger. On top of that, they've now realized emptiness directly. And that's where Lama Tsongkhapa starts with this explanation. Okay. Having reached this level, a bodhisattva is now said to be beautified, or enhanced, or adorned. Very kind of poetic language, embellished by 8 qualities. All right. So now, if I go through these 8 that were explained before, what do you think? How does it beautify a bodhisattva? What does that mean? I mean, imagine a bodhisattva. Imagine His Holiness the Dalai Lama. If he's not fully enlightened, he is a bodhisattva. I mean, there's so many lamas, just Lama Zopa Rinpoche, these great beings. And probably all of you know 1 or 2, or maybe have met someone or know of these great beings. It's always easier if you just imagine these masters who are only there for other sentient beings, work for their benefit at all times, but at the same time following the Buddhist path to enlightenment. Cannot tell. Not always. There can be some bodhisattvas we don't know what they're doing, but think of the lamas. Okay, so first of all, they have these 8 qualities. I'll just quickly go through them. I have to go through them, just going back to the old material. Number 1, just a sec. That's the third one, that's the second, and the third one, the first one is, oh yeah, they obtain a meaningful title. They can now be called bodhisattvas in the ultimate sense. Okay, they're called bodhisattvas in the ultimate sense. That is one of the qualities. They get that special title. Not that they care about titles, but as we've heard last time, for us, if there's someone with a special title, such as an ultimate bodhisattva or a bodhisattva in the ultimate sense, if someone is such a bodhisattva, for us it's helpful. We're drawn to them. We're drawn to see them as an example. So having a certain title. Okay, that's the first quality. The second quality is that they're now born into the lineage of the Buddhas. Okay, they've gained this meaningful title. They're now born, the second quality is they're born into the lineage of the Buddhas. It may be a little bit confusing because the way they're numbered here is different. First, it says they have a meaningful title in one verse. In the next verse, 4 are listed. And so 1, 2, 3, 4. It says the first quality, the second, the third. But actually, overall, it's the second one. But in this verse, of the 8 qualities, it becomes the number, like the first line is the first, prescribes the first quality, the second line, the second, and so forth. Is that confusing? A little bit, but that's the way Lama Tsongkhapa does it. So never mind, we don't need to follow that. So if you don't follow the text right now. When we read through it, I don't think we were confused. But this is from last time, so you don't need to read it. But anyway, we've got a meaningful title. Number 2 has now entered the lineage of the Bodhisattvas, which means can no longer fall back, irreversibly speeding towards enlightenment. Okay, that's the second quality. The third quality is the Bodhisattva got rid of certain afflictions. 112 can no longer arise. But these afflictions, 112, were acquired. Acquired in that we have afflictions that we were not born with. Because we have those that we were born with, we have innate ones. Since we were very little, we have attachment to the I, attachment to my happiness. That's innate. But then based on that, we develop an acquired grasping at I and my happiness. I mean, the whole philosophies of the soul and the ego and all this. And we hold on to these views, possibly, take them on and live accordingly. Now they're all gone. Anyway, so these different and acquired anger that we weren't born with, but we developed within this life. Okay, now they're all gone. But they're summarized in the form of three main kind of afflictions, which is acquired self-grasping, a mind that holds on to an objective, inherently existent I, an acquired version of grasping in particular at an inherently existent I. Then there is afflictive doubt, always doubting. It's also acquired, always doubting, never coming to a decision. It's called reflective doubt. There's positive doubt, but this is not the positive type. And then lastly, there is the kind of mind. Let me just look for it. It's put in. It sounds here much better. So holding inferior morality and spiritual conduct as superior. So engaging in so-called spiritual practice that actually harms others. So for instance, animal sacrifice, believing that, killing another living being takes you to liberation, for instance. Now these three, they're afflictive doubt and holding inferior morality or spiritual practices or spiritual conduct as superior, they are all acquired. Well, afflictive doubt and this holding this particular view, they're acquired anyway. You're not born with that. And the first one, this grasping at a self as intrinsically existent, that type is the acquired type here anyway. There's an innate type, but this one they don't touch on that level. And what are these three factors? Well, they prevent us from wanting to be liberated. The stronger our grasping at the self, right? The less we want to be liberated. We're attached to the I, we're attached to samsara. We don't want to let go. Then we doubt the path. We have doubt all the time, so we can't continue. Or we take a wrong path. So not wanting to go, doubting we can go, or going in the wrong direction. That's why those three are mentioned. That in order to overcome those three obstacles, right? Obstacles in terms of not wanting to transform your mind, etc., doubting it's possible. Well, in order to overcome these obstacles, you need to at least overcome these three binding factors that bind us to samsara. So that's the third quality. All right. Then the fourth quality is, just a sec, they have an incredible joy. That's the good news, right? The other ones are like, yeah, right, whatever. But, the joy part. Yeah. So, they experience so much joy, such supreme joy. And as I said last time, joy is really important for Buddhist practice. And when you get to know the lamas, I mean, they're usually really joyful and, I've never met a depressed lama. I've never met a depressed lama. Maybe serious, but never depressed. And they're also up for a good joke. I mean, we all know His Holiness, always a kind of, ready to love, ready to smile. And the Tibetans themselves, I mean, they're so easygoing, really easygoing, and they love a good joke, right? It goes as far as, you trip and they all think it's hilarious. But it's not like in German Schadenfreude. It's not like they're like, oh, great, No. Then they come and they help you. It's very good natured, they pick you up and, dust you off and stuff. No, but it's really good nature, that kind of joy. And that's why the Tibetans are really good with the Dharma. Actually, there's also the Australians. They're also really good. Well, they're really laid back. You know, that laid back kind of attitude. Anyone is laid back, and I can't say all Australians, of course, but I think, yeah, in general, the lamas have said that the Australians, they're good candidates. They're really laid back. So that kind of laid back, relaxed, and joyful attitude. Very good. And I mentioned the Heart Sutra. It stops with everyone happy. Seriously, right? And then at the very end, everyone is rejoicing. Remember? That's how it stops. So we kind of ignore that bit usually, but it's so important to find the joy in this. Because our mind naturally wants to be happy, deserves to be happy, needs to be happy. Now, I'm not talking about attachment. Once attachment comes in and it becomes like an obsession. No, but in general, a mind, any kind of mind, your mind, my mind, all of our minds, just naturally have a tendency wanting to be satisfied and happy. And that is an important state. And that's why the Buddha taught in the first place. If he wanted us to suffer, he would have said, be angry, kill people, steal their money, engage in sexual misconduct. But no, understanding what people wanted and understanding that people oftentimes, us, we want that, but accumulate the causes for the opposite, told us how to be, first of all, wisely selfish, and then eventually overcome selfishness. Okay. So this state of supreme joy is very, very important, and it enhances as part of practice. And on this level, it is pretty outstanding because of having realized emptiness directly, of having completely understood how phenomena really exist in the sense of experiencing it. So a very important quality, another one that beautifies the Bodhisattva. Okay, that's the fourth one. And the next one is, they have the power to shake 100 worlds. Oh, they cause earthquakes. Don't come to Dharmsala. It's already, no. But no, it's of course, literally, it doesn't literally mean they cause earthquakes, but rather they're able to move people, move worlds, societies. And so, of course, it seems like we usually just think of this world, but from a Buddhist point of view, there are other worlds. If modern science is expecting that there are, other galaxies and other universes, other worlds. Buddha taught that 2,600 years ago. He said, yes, there's so many galaxies, there are other solar systems, there are other worlds, and there are other living beings. And once you reach the path of seeing, you manifest different emanations in other places. That is really mind-boggling. It's hard enough, like I said it last time, to be just one person. But how can I be in different places at the same time? And still, if we understand self-grasping better, it makes sense. When that is reduced, you can manifest in that way, but that comes later. Anyway, that is the fifth quality, having the power to move 100 or more worlds. 100 worlds, it says here. 100 in Tibetan is not literally always 100. We're so precise with numbers in the West. Our whole education is based on mathematics. Well, Buddhism is not based on mathematics, right? Shunyata, shunya. Zero is important. It was an Indian master who basically came up with shunya, zero. Shunyata means emptiness, shunya means zero. Very great similarity. With zero, everything becomes possible. With emptiness, everything becomes possible. The more shunya you add, the greater the number. One with many zeros. Never mind. There's a whole great thing about emptiness and zero, but never mind. So it doesn't mean nothingness. Okay. Anyway, so the point is that a bodhisattva has the power to, influence other beings, other living beings in this profound way. And then the next quality is the bodhisattva now continues from one step, from one ground to the next, continues on and on, ever higher. That's number, I did that, but I forgot to count. Where did we got? How many are there? 6, thank you. Okay, great. And then the next quality, number 7, at that point, the path to all the lower realms are completely blocked. No way they can be reborn in the lower realm unless they choose so. They choose to do so. Can longer do that. And the last, number 8, is the quality of that they're no longer ordinary. They're an Arya being. The word Arya has been abused in, well, at least in Nazi Germany. The Aryans, actual Aryans are these bodhisattvas or these beings who've realized emptiness directly. They're called supermundane or called Aryas. All right, so those beautify a bodhisattva. How? What does that mean? They adorn a bodhisattva. What comes to mind? You don't need to answer, but just think. Sometimes the best is if someone approaches you after a class and says, look, I'm here for the first time. I've never heard about this. Can you explain this to me? And then, you're supposed to explain it to someone and you really need to think deeply. You have a responsibility now to explain it to them. So what would you say? I mean, you're welcome to share it, but what comes to mind? All these qualities you've heard, why are they, how do they adorn a bodhisattva? Anyone? How do they? I'm saying this because there's a debate underneath. There's a debate coming with some of the other qualities that are mentioned that are not mentioned in the context of beautifying a bodhisattva. They still talk about other qualities, so why not? Why are those qualities? This is typical in debate. This is a typical debate you would do on the debate ground. You're basically questioning Lama Tsongkhapa, which is encouraged. I mean, questioning is in not saying he's wrong per se, but saying, I wonder, Lama Tsongkhapa, why did you say that? These 8 qualities that I just went through, why are they described as, what would you think? Why are they described as qualities that adorn a bodhisattva, that beautify, that enhance or embellish a bodhisattva?
You can recognize it maybe in somebody? Or
So maybe you can recognize it in them. Let me see. What about having eliminated the 3 binding factors? How do you recognize that?
you don't recognize these 3 binding factors, but you realize this.
That they have abandoned them?
Energy they radiate.
Okay, they radiate a positive energy, I agree, but does that positive energy tell you what they've just overcome? No.
But it's also
What's that? So in the debate, you would say, oh, sorry.
But it's also helpful to put yourself, to find yourself. You are on the path. When you are already on the path to find yourself, where are you?
Oh, if you're already on the path, you would recognize it, or you. Well, all this is true. I agree, but that still doesn't mean. Your point was it beautifies a bodhisattva because we can recognize it. Others can recognize it, so therefore it beautifies them. But us ordinary people, I don't think do we really recognize it, that they progress ever higher, or that they have a meaningful title, unless someone tells us, right? So why do they? Right? I mean, it's difficult. This is not easy to answer. I don't have an answer, actually, to be honest. I can only debate it. So we debate this just to understand it better, because now we need to think about each of these points and, what is it about bodhisattva? Get to know bodhisattva better. You remember in the past, I talked about this maybe a few times, this discussion, this debate is actually supposed to be like an analytical meditation. If you really were to do analytical meditation in a consequent kind of like on a daily basis, in particular what we've learned, we would sit down and go through all this. What does this mean? Who's the bodhisattva? And in that way, maybe what I just did, that debate that comes up, kind of bring up that debate. Why beautify? What is it about these 8 qualities that is different about other qualities, for instance. And so we do it one-on-one on the debate ground, but we can also do it in our room, for instance. Yes?
Maybe it wants to show what should be overcome from the darkness, from the not beauty, the opposite, so that it becomes a beauty.
So it shows us what should be overcome.
What they already overcome, so that they become a bodhisattva, what they already transcended, so they become a bodhisattva from ordinary, not ordinary.
Sorry, can you say that again? A little slower?
Maybe it wants to show us what one human being should overcome, transcended, so from not ordinary become ordinary, from ordinary become not ordinary bodhisattva.
Oh, right. So this is, okay, now I get it. So these are beautifying qualities because they should show us what we should achieve as ordinary beings in order to become extraordinary. So for us to understand, those 8 are the main qualities we should achieve in order to become extraordinary ourselves. Okay, let's leave that for the time being. And now, I said I can debate. Answering is a different one. I make you answer it. But all right, so let's look at the material we're going to do this year. All right, so now here are some qualities described in verse 8. The first lines that are in blue letters. That's verse 8, the first 3 verses. They are not explained from the point of view of a bodhisattva being beautified by this, but these are qualities that allow them to surpass hearers and solitary realizers by means of what's called the bodhisattva's lineage. This lineage, that is such a difficult word. Lineage. Are you familiar with this word? Like lineage. We talk a lot about lineage. It's very confusing, very hard to comprehend. What other meanings does lineage have? Do you know? It's the Tibetan word rik. Rakiko rikasa rik. Rik. Rik, if you know Tibetan, it also can mean
science.
Pardon?
Science.
Science?
Science.
Science. Oh, that's rikpa. No, rikpa. That's without the sa.
Oh, yes.
Rikpa. Yeah. No, rik. Sangegi rik. Buddha nature. The word for Buddha nature is also rik. So Buddha, to be of that type. The word really kind of means type. To be of the Buddhas. So to have Buddha nature kind of means to have something within you that makes you belong to the Buddhas, in the sense that you have the potential to become a Buddha. There's already something there that pertains to Buddhahood, but in the form of a potential, or in the form of something that because you have it, you can definitely become a Buddha. Yes?
And is the point of contention that we all have it, so how do we know?
The point of contention?
Because we all have Buddha nature.
Right.
Is that the point of contention that you said that you're going to debate the... No, that's different. I'm actually just explaining this term, rik, which means here, like we say, bodhisattva lineage. What does it mean to be part of a bodhisattva lineage? It's this word that can also be translated, like it's used as Buddha nature, for instance, the lineage, the word that's, you can also say we have the Buddha lineage. But lineage, we think of like kings following a certain lineage. It has a different meaning, but in certain contexts, the word rik can mean lineage, it can mean type, it can even mean family.
Maybe the maturity of the mind.
Pardon?
Maybe the maturity.
The maturity of the mind.
In this lineage, the readiness, the maturity.
In lineage, I mean, it actually just means to be of a certain type, right? I'm just trying to explain that term because when we hear, I don't know whether, if I had translated this text, I would have used the word lineage here. But I don't have a good alternative. Pardon? Species, the Bodhisattva species. But that sounds so weird. So anyway, what does it say here? Hearers and solitary realizers are surpassed by means. So
practitioners of the foundational vehicle, they are surpassed by bodhisattvas in terms of something specific, the bodhisattva lineage, the bodhisattva type. And then it's explained what that means. Okay, so just keep that in mind. So even when abiding, and now the verse itself reads, even when abiding on the first ground of the mind for full awakening, he, the bodhisattva, or the the bodhisattvas, surpass those born from the sage's speech. So those born from the sage's speech are hearers, just another word for saying sage, just another way of saying hearers. And the Pratyeka Buddhas, solitary realizers, so the true practitioners of the Theravada or foundational vehicle, through the power of his merit. And his merit increases ever more. So, let's now explain this, okay. So let alone on the second and any further grounds. Here we're on the first, we're talking about the first ground. So let alone on the second and subsequent grounds of the mind for full awakening, even when abiding on the first ground, through the power of his merit of conventional awakening mind and compassion, the Bodhisattva surpasses, this is Lama Tsongkhapa now speaking, surpasses, that is to say, outshines Shravakas, who are born from the sage's speech. Oh, I forgot to put this in blue letters. Okay, sorry. And the Pratyeka Buddhas. Yeah, this should also be in blue. Who are born from the sage's speech and the Pratyeka Buddhas. I'll give you an updated version. That should be in blue because it's also in the root verse. And his merit increases ever more, unlike those two. This then is another distinctive quality of the Bodhisattva beyond the qualities mentioned above. Well, very difficult to understand. I know. It's a good translation, but very difficult. Okay. Now let's see the explanation underneath it. So these first 3 lines of verse 8 explain that even on the very first ground, on the first level, on the path of seeing, the very first ground of the ultimate awakening mind, so when you realize emptiness directly, bodhisattvas, they surpass both types of foundational practitioners, hearers and solitary realizers. This surpassing is not a matter of their mere realization of ultimate reality and abandonment, so what they eliminate, what they abandon. Since all 3 practitioners, bodhisattvas, hearers, solitary realizers, all 3 of them, once they realize emptiness directly, or once they reach their particular path of seeing, even for hearers and solitary realizers, we divide their path into path of accumulation, path of preparation, path of seeing, path of meditation. They also undergo these levels, they're just a little different. So once they reach the path of seeing, they directly realize emptiness. They're all the same in that way. And at that stage, they also eliminate the same acquired afflictive obstructions. Bodhisattvas do that, and they do too. So they're all the same. How can one surpass the other? Well, rather, bodhisattvas on the first ground outshine foundational practitioners through the immense power of merit generated by their great compassion and conventional bodhicitta. That's it. Because of that incredible great compassion and their conventional bodhicitta, the wish to become enlightened for the benefit of all sentient beings, that's why they outshine hearers and solitary realizers. Not in terms of their wisdom. It's the method part, the emotional part that is much stronger. And thereby they accumulate a lot of positive potential. Merit. So difficult to talk about merit. I mean, we talk about it all the time. What is merit? What does it look like? Does it have a shape or color? No, it doesn't. Right? It's so difficult. Some people call it like a positive energy but no, that's also not a positive potential. It also sounds great, but what does that even mean, a positive potential? Someone has the potential to become an astronaut. That would be a positive potential, but you would need to have merit for that, right? But it's really just another way of saying, Aiden, how would you explain, sorry, I'm so mean. Aiden, how would you explain merit?
I'd explain it like the difference in physics between kinetic energy and potential energy. So like if you take a rock to the top of the building,
Mm-hmm.
it has energy,
Right.
potential. When you let it go,
Yes.
then that energy becomes manifest.
Right.
So for me, the merit you have
Yes.
allows things to happen.
Right.
It's kind of stored energy that when you need it,
Yes. Yes.
it can
Yes.
manifest into something.
All right. So you're giving us example of like a rock. When the rock falls, there is a certain energy that is
So
now
you carry it up to the top,
right.
it acquires this what we call potential energy.
So once it's up on the hill, without dropping the stone, it has a certain potential energy, but it hasn't manifested itself yet, unless you push it down and then it manifests itself. So you're talking about merit as in like the potential energy that is there with the rock before it falls down. All right, so it allows the possibilities. I think that's a nice way of looking at it. You know, it's got the potential to crush you, to crush your body, but it hasn't manifested yet, but it has that, right? So similarly, as Aidan, I think I understand him, you accumulate something, this merit gives you the possibility to utilize this in a way, for instance, to benefit others greatly, or what else?
Even for mundane things. I mean,
Even for mundane things.
food and
To get what you need, what you want. Yeah, very good. So it's a kind of potential you've accumulated. They sometimes compare it to something very mundane. Capital in the bank, right? It sounds bizarre, but of course we're not saying merit is really like money. But if you've got a lot of money, just take it from a mundane perspective. If you've got a lot of capital, even if it's bound up in, I don't know, I don't know, like what do you call that in the bank when you help me? Have fixed deposits or something, right? So you don't have it sitting there in front of you, but it's tied up in certain, but you can always access it and then utilize it to buy things and do with it whatever you want. Now, merit can be compared to that. You have like a positive karmic potential that is so strong, you wish to do something and you can accomplish that. So the more merit we accumulate, the more we are able to accomplish what we want. I mean, to think of a person who's definitely accumulated a lot of merit while kind of very good at destroying it right now, I would say a certain president. Who's become very, very powerful, who's, arguably the most powerful person in the world. So this particular person, to get there, must have accumulated, a lot of merit to reach that. I don't think we have that. I mean, even if we wish to, that kind of merit. So it's in terms of political power, of course, there's different type of merit, but being able to accomplish that. So here we specifically talk about spiritual merit, that yes, they may even have the merit to become a political kind of leader, etc. But in particular, for them to continue on with their spiritual practice, to benefit others very effectively in such a way that they walk into a room and people forget about their problems and so on. We spoke about it last time, that these are the kind of aspirational prayers a Bodhisattva would make. All right.
Can we say that accumulating merit from every intentional action, what is motivated by altruism, will be always positive
Yes.
accumulation for merit?
Absolutely, absolutely. Every time, any action they accumulate, motivated by great compassion, that's what you said basically, so I'm repeating it, motivated by great compassion, conventional bodhicitta, and so forth, any action with this bodhisattva accumulates great merit. And guess what? When we started this session, we started with the motivation of great compassion, etc., to achieve exactly that. Because and that's the power of our mind, if we generate this motivation, we really do. I mean, we're not just reciting the words, but actually literally saying, mentally thinking, I'm doing this for the benefit of all sentient beings. Your being here becomes a really positive, potentially, virtuous action. Not just potentially, it becomes a virtuous action that holds a lot of potential. So I said in the very beginning, we fake it until we make it. What we're learning here, we're kind of pretending we're already bodhisattvas. We generate bodhicitta before every action without really having bodhicitta. But doing it again and again, we do accumulate a lot of merit. we get closer to generating actual bodhicitta, and in that way, basically engage in similar practices that a bodhisattva would, except it's not as powerful yet. But through, of course, familiarizing with anything, it becomes something spontaneous and natural in the future. And neuroscience supports that. You know, new pathways are created in the brain that right now are quite weak. But just think of your brain. If the whole thing with the mind is kind of like can't even see it, not that impressed, think of neuroscience, neuroplasticity. You can do this, you know, up to the age of 90. You can still 80, 100, whenever, until you die. Your brain is plasticity. So plastic. No, never mind. Not plastic. Placid. Valuable. Yes, it can change, right? It can change. And so every time we do this, new pathway, bodhisattva pathways are built. You wanted to say something?
I just got confused with the certain president example. Are we saying that like merit is inherently neutral and then it's kind of like a positive neutrality, and then when it becomes an action, maybe it's not necessarily positive for everyone? But then the lady over there said like every action motivated by great compassion accumulates great merit, which feels like it has a positive tendency.
So your question is, if any action itself, any physical or verbal action, only virtuous if it's got the right kind of motivation? Is that your question?
Sort of.
No?
I guess like the gentleman over there saying like the potential energy is neutral, right? The rock, and the merit is the potential energy. So is it neutral or is generated by positive action into neutrality and then?
All right, the rock is totally neutral. And the rock, of course, we never speak about like a virtuous or non-virtuous because the rock doesn't have a mind, yes. So I think it was more about the example, like, you know, potential versus the actual. No, but that's a good question, right? That's a good question. So what about any kind of action? Like we have, how many actions are there? Usually 3. Actions of body, actions of speech, and the action of mind. So action of body and speech, I think they're easily understood. But action of mind, when do they become virtuous? When they become non-virtuous?
When the intention is positive.
If there's a positive intention preceding it, a thought such as I'm going to make tea now, or I'm going to go and have a shower. If it's motivated, if you were to think, and this is something Lama Zopa Rinpoche very much encouraged, right? When you walk down a staircase, for instance, think I'm doing this for the benefit of all sentient beings. I'm opening this cupboard, and when I'm closing it, I'm closing the door to the lower realms for all sentient beings, helping them, right? So this thought of just closing the cupboard, before you close the cupboard, you have the thought to do so. And that is already motivated by compassion and bodhicitta. Of course, we're not saying bodhisattva should just be closing cabinets, you know, open and close cabinets the whole day and that's your practice. No, but you have to do that. As a bodhisattva, you have to, you know, drink and eat and possibly make your own food and you open cabinets and close them again. But even that practice, make it meaningful. Therefore, in answer to your question, there are certain neutral actions, right, from what I just said. Neutral actions, the thought to do something and then to actually do it, they turn virtuous because of the motivation, right? Now, this we can all agree on, but yes, Aiden?
I think the question still is, you create the potential, the merit, but how you use it, right?
Oh, to create the merit,
Yes.
how do you use it? That was your question?
I mean, because then you can use it either positively or negatively.
Yes.
Is at the time when you create the merit,
Right.
positive motivation, like bodhicitta,
Right.
will create a larger amount of merit.
Right.
So if I make a cup of tea just for myself,
Yes. Yes.
it's a neutral action, let's say.
Right.
If I make it to benefit my family, so I can help my family, it's
Yes.
bigger.
Yes.
If
Yes.
I make it for all sentient beings,
Huge.
I make huge.
Yes, yes,
So I
yes.
have that stored merit.
Right.
Now, what do I do with it?
What do you do with it? Okay.
I now use it for negative things, like I become a kid.
Oh.
And I become selfish in my actions.
Right. Okay. Okay. Let me repeat what Aidan just said. Okay. So first of all, what has become, I guess, clear from everything we've had so far. So he very nicely summarized it. If I make that cup of tea, which in itself is neutral, if I just do it for my own benefit, okay, there's not much. I don't think there's any real merit there, really. If I do it for my whole family, there's for others, therefore some merit. If I do it for all sentient beings, there's incredible merit. But now that I've accumulated this positive potential, what can I do with it? Can I use that to kill other sentient, to become this powerful person that starts a war and is able to eliminate their enemy? Well, let me ask a counter question. Why do we dedicate virtue? Why do we dedicate merit? Like accumulating merit is one thing. We accumulate merit by generating the right kind of motivation. As Aidan gave this beautiful example just now, so you have certain neutral actions that you can turn around into virtuous actions. The question is, are there virtuous actions by themselves? Without the motivation, they're virtuous at all times. Are there negative actions that are negative at all times, independent of your motivation or not? But without answering that, are there, what did I just say? A neutral, so without even going into that. So neutral actions is pretty easy. With your motivation, you can turn them into something very powerful. The way Aidan beautifully gave based on the example Aidan gave, the cup of tea, just for myself, for my whole family, for all sentient beings. Now, that accumulated merit, what do we do with it? We dedicate it. We dedicate it. So why do we dedicate it? Okay, there are two reasons. I give you two reasons why we do them. Why we do that, sorry. Why we dedicate. Two main reasons. Cannot get lost. She said, cannot get lost. What do you mean with that?
When you get angry.
Destroyed? Yeah. Very good. That's it exactly. What she said. If you get angry, anger is a very powerful negative state of mind that can potentially destroy certain virtues, merit accumulated in the past. So this is how the mind works. It destroys virtue. Okay, so for it to not be destroyed, that's a very good reason. Is there another good reason? That's one reason, one of the very good answers. So yes, that's one of the reasons. But there's a second one.
To benefit other beings.
That's not the reason. To benefit other sentient beings, yes, that is true, but that's not the two main reasons. There are two main reasons. What is the other reason?
So that it can only be used for that specific.
Yes, that it doesn't ripen into something meaningless, right? That it doesn't ripen because our virtue can, like the virtue of, making that cup of tea could potentially ripen into everyone brings you tea until the rest of your day. How meaningless is that? I can make my own tea. I don't need other people to make my tea. To give you an absurd example, but if having made tea for all sentient beings for, let's say, a month, and I've accumulated incredibly powerful merit, that could potentially result in, every day someone comes to my room and offers me a cup of tea. I don't need that. That is a waste of merit. I want it to accumulate. I want it to ripen in my spiritual program. I want it to become a cause for my own enlightenment. And so in that way, through the power of the mind, I can direct my virtue. The virtue I've accumulated is based on my own mind in the form of what we call imprints. That's when we talk about imprints. And so, just a sec, it's based on my own mind, and I can actually control it in that way through the power of my aspirations. We talked about prayer before. Prayer is not so much about, please help me, I'll just wait until you come down and kind of help me. No, it's about directing the mind through our own aspirations, creating causes and conditions in that way, right? So, yes, Aidan, please, you wanted to say something?
Just want to say, especially like in this town, say for instance, there's lots
Pardon?
of people, in this town, you know, in McLeod, there's lots of people who volunteer in Dharma
Mhm.
centres,
Mhm.
in this class.
Yes.
I know for me, I've seen many of them don't dedicate specific actions.
Mhm.
They might help with the class today,
Mhm.
and then they'll just, you know, they may dedicate in the class as part of the dedication.
Mhm.
They need to dedicate that specific action. That, you know, I help set up the room, or I help with the live stream. All those actions then going to become.
Well, how do these? Okay, so Aidan's point is that he knows that a lot of people in McLeodganj, in particular in McLeodganj, a lot of people, and I'm repeating that for those online, a lot of people are volunteering. They're helping to set up, for instance, this room, this classroom, or making all this possible, or other places like volunteering in Dharma centers and so on. So, but they don't seem to dedicate the virtue every time they engage in these actions. So how does that work? Well, how are these dedication prayers? How are they worded? All the virtue I've accumulated in the 3 times. They're pretty like a safeguard, you know. It's not like today at 2, from 2 to 4. No. Like all the virtue I myself and all sentient beings have accumulated. I mean, even like taking others, kind of like as if you could do that, basically. But it goes beyond your own. You can't actually, of course, dedicate others' virtue, but it's almost like to include anything there is, right? So if you just recite the words and thinking, oh, when is this over? I just want to help me get it. Then, of course, that's not the dedication of the word, reciting the words, but it's really thinking it. Anything I've accumulated up to this point, I dedicate. So I guess, yeah, then that would include whatever you've done. And that's why, as the great Kadampa masters say, any action we engage in should start with one thing and end with something else, right? Any action. So best would be any action, or if it's just any Dharma action. But if we can make our entire life and turn that, any action we're engaging into the Dharma, we should start with generating bodhicitta and dedicating it. And that's why when you have a daily practice, you start with generating bodhicitta and compassion. The first thing you do, remember His Holiness, when he was still teaching more frequently, or when he was still teaching, he would always say, I start the day with generating bodhicitta and reflecting on emptiness. But mainly here in this context, we're interested in bodhicitta. And then at the end of the day, although His Holiness, maybe he's mentioned it, but not as frequently, you dedicate. The last thing before you go to bed, you dedicate. And again, the merit of all 3 times. And when you do it every night, you're really safe, right? It's always, yeah. So I guess that's how it works. Yeah. All right. Yes?
So does that mean that bodhicitta is like the self-sustaining merit machine?
Oh, that's a nice way of putting it. So does that mean bodhicitta is the self-sustaining merit machine? I'm going to write that down. That is the that putting it into more modern word, it's true. It is the self-sustaining merit machine, bodhicitta. Exactly. Great compassion and so forth. But of course, if you really feel it, if you really feel it, when you really, right? It's not like just thinking the thought and kind of like, just thinking it. That's not real. I mean, you have to really feel it. Yes, it's the self-sustaining merit machine. Exactly.
Because it sounds like if my merit isn't intended with bodhicitta, eventually it fizzles out.
If my merit is motivated by bodhicitta, eventually it fizzles out.
Unless it is, yeah.
That's true. That's true as well. You do it once in the morning and then it kind of wears off. Is that what you're saying?
Neve's question made me think that merit's inherently neutral. And so, like you gave the example of Donald Trump becoming president. It's an energy potential.
Did I say Donald Trump? No, you were. Was I so obvious? Oh, no. Go ahead. Sorry. I gave the example. Yeah. So that is actually that's virtue. Okay. That.
You probably didn't do it with the intention of bodhicitta. And so from that end, restorative energy kind of.
Oh no, I don't think. Oh, okay. He's bringing out an important point. I don't think merit has to always be motivated by bodhicitta. No. It's a very powerful. But remember what Aiden said in the beginning. So if you make tea just for your entire family, that's already merit. It doesn't have to be for the benefit of all sentient beings. You know, and I mean, even for this benefit of all sentient beings, in the sense, may this become a cause for our own enlightenment so that it can benefit all sentient beings. That kind of making tea would be taking bodhicitta at the beginning. But there are other ways to accumulate merit. I mean, in Christianity and Islam and so forth, of course, they accumulate a lot of, in other religions that very much emphasize being there for other sentient beings. Of course, Judaism and all these religions. So there is the motivation, the wish to do so, and then they engage in an action. They do accumulate a lot of merit. But here it's like for the benefit of all sentient beings and to be able to be of the ultimate benefit, the greatest benefit. So, you know, it's kind of like it has an extra kind of potential, I would say. But yeah.
More potent.
More potent. That's a good way of putting it. Yeah, it's more potent. But going back to the original question, is virtue by itself, is any action that is not motivated in that specific way, is it always neutral? Are there actions that no matter what your motivation, if just the wish to do so, that in itself, can it be itself naturally non-virtuous or naturally virtuous? What do you think?
Yes.
Yes. Please, an example.
I take a nurse from the kindergarten. She's doing bodhicitta. She's doing all the day caring for children in a positive mind. So she's doing this.
So without the motivation to do so.
Yes.
Without the motivation.
She's doing a job, but she likes to do it, and she takes care for the children,
Mm-hmm.
and is there for them with all her heart. So
Okay,
it's
so
positive.
benefiting others without the wish to do so, but just doing it. Okay, all right. Yeah, okay, let's just leave it for now. But can you think of a non-virtuous one? A non-virtuous one? And I'm not disagreeing, but can you think of an action, and I'm sure many of you have heard of this particular action, that is always non-virtuous?
To steal.
Killing. So, but intentional killing, you must. So to squash an animal, that's not non-virtuous. If you unintentionally, if you're negligent, if you're just careless and you walk somewhere and that is different. That is non-virtuous. But if you're trying your best not to kill any animal, but you happen to kill an animal indirectly, for instance, that is said to be neutral. But the wish to kill is said to be non-virtuous. There's this one example. I give you this classic example. There was an example of a bodhisattva who killed someone who the bodhisattva knew were going to kill other people. The bodhisattva was on a boat with 500 merchants, and one merchant was about to kill the 499 other merchants, and the bodhisattva the bodhisattva who later on became Buddha Shakyamuni. So the story goes that he killed these 499 merchants because he couldn't imprison the person, couldn't do anything else to stop them. So let's take that kind of scenario. So in the end, out of great compassion for that potential killer, the Buddha killed this particular person to save them from the negative karma of killing 499 people, and of course the 499 people. And it said that there was some slight non-virtue that had a slight negative, short negative, because of the thought killing someone. But because the rest of it was so virtuous, it was just a tiny non-virtuous or negative experience, which was totally outshone by the positive one. So that gives you the context that there are certain actions, such as killing, which naturally holds non-virtue, just the wish to take someone's life, because life is precious. However, if it's done with the utmost, love and compassion, and this is very difficult, so don't misunderstand me, but like in this case, all the circumstances were there and it was positive overall with that tiny negativity. So therefore, the question is, if you have that with killing, how about other actions? Hard to say, we only know from killing, but just food for thought, basically. And then going back to what you said about like being someone always being there for others and without having really the wish to benefit them, just doing what feels right? It's kind of like someone comes up to you and you're not like, oh, I want to benefit this person greatly. Nothing of that. You're helping them. I think that's actually just a virtuous action. I would agree with you. Yeah. So there are certain actions. I mean, of course, you could do the same action, wanting other people to think you're wonderful, right? So not with that attitude, neither having a negative one nor a specific motivation, the way Aidan also said, but just doing it because it's the right thing to do. Yeah. Okay. Anyway, enough of that. I want to go back to this, but I think it was an important discussion because merit, when we hear merit, what does that even mean? And here we have a bodhisattva who, despite their wisdom not differing from that of hearers and solitary realizers, outshines these hearers and solitary realizers, these practitioners of the foundational vehicle, because of their incredible merit, love and compassion. If this is already the case on the first ground, then it is all the more so on the higher grounds, where great compassion and conventional bodhicitta expand to ever greater degrees, and the disparity between bodhisattvas and foundational practitioners becomes increasingly pronounced. In this way, the text, that is Acharya Chandrakirti, Lama Tsongkhapa's text, highlights this further quality of bodhisattvas on the first ground, in addition to those that beautify a bodhisattva mentioned above. The 8 qualities, remember, beautifying every virtuous action they perform that is informed by great compassion and bodhicitta. And going back to your question, it kind of like, it seems to, what did you say, trigger out? Or like, didn't you use that?
Dissolve.
Kind of dissolve. That's why you need to repeat it. Because in the morning, that's why, for instance, I mentioned Lama Zopa Rinpoche, who says in every action, reinforce it. Because yes, you're right. You do it in the morning, and because you had that thought, it sustains the actions. Remember last time we spoke about a mind sustaining other actions. So even though that mind was active, let's say in the morning at 6 o'clock, then it lies dormant and other actions arise, but it still influences these actions. Yeah, it sustains them. However, the force of that sustaining mind will slowly weaken, which is why you should regenerate it throughout your day. So when you walk down a stair, I'm walking down to the lower realms to help sentient beings. When you walk up, I'm taking them up again. I mean, Rinpoche has a beautiful way of using mind training in the most meaningless kind of, or meaningless in the sense of the most, help me with the word. Mundane, that's it. Mundane activities, yes, the most mundane activities. So yeah, we're reinforcing it. Right? That's mind training. That's mind training. We can all do it. That's the beauty of the Dharma. Just doing that all day long, you accumulate so much virtue. If you don't do much else, make a lot of tea all day long, you can turn it into something so profound. The problem is we forget. That's where mindfulness comes in. That's why mindfulness is so important. Without mindfulness, we keep forgetting. But it's so simple to accumulate merit, actually. And the best merit, the way you can accumulate merit for lazy people, it's described as accumulating merit for the lazy ones. What is that? Rejoicing in everyone else who accumulates so much merit. Right? Oh, how wonderful, you guys. You're working so hard listening to me. It's so much easier to talk than to listen. I know from my own experience. It's like, I rejoice in your diligence, right? So easy, basically. They just lie down. Everyone's going to the teachings, working so hard. You just lie down, just rejoicing. But it's also so beautiful because, especially in the 21st century, we suffer from envy. Envy is huge in our society. I know from the Tibetans who are not envious. Traditionally, they're not. Incredibly, my classmates, how they lacked envy. They were sometimes competitive with one another on the debate ground. So like, yeah, shoving and pushing and, don't want to let go of your view. But it was never there was no meanness. It wasn't like, I don't want the other person to do well. It was just like, no, I'm not going to give up. So there was a healthy sense of competitiveness, but that's it. But in the West nowadays, competitiveness has been very much encouraged, right? Our whole material world is based on, and it's given rise to envying others, and it's such a painful emotion and so harmful. I mean, think, if rejoicing, which is the opposite of envy, is one of the best ways to accumulate merit, guess what envy does? Talking about destroying merit. I call envy 2 in 1. Attachment and aversion. You're attached to something that you want to achieve, for instance. Like you want to, be famous, or you want to be a great meditator, or you want to be whatever. That's the attachment. And you have aversion towards the person who's achieved that. You don't like them. You're angry with them. So it's 2 in 1. And the anger part destroys the non-virtue. So every time we're envious of a particular quality of the other person, we're accumulating the causes for us not to achieve that. Right? On the other hand, if we rejoice in whatever we want to achieve, we accumulate the causes to do so. So those two are so powerful, generating the right kind of motivation. And it's so easy to do. So easy to do. If you have a jealous kind of thought, just force yourself to rejoice. You can do that. You can just go, no. You have the jealous mind talking, you're like, you better shut up. I rejoice in the virtue of that. May they have more of it. And the jealous one, no, don't you dare. No, may they have more. May they have triple. And you can actually just get, your thoughts running that way. And the other thought won't have any space. Yeah. So this is the power of mind. This is the power of our own mind. And in that way, there's so many simple ways of accumulating so much powerful merit. Can watch thousands of movies every day, binge on series, do whatever you want. Just remember motivation and rejoicing. Right? Okay. So let's continue. In this way, the text highlights these further qualities of bodhisattvas on the first ground, in addition to those that beautify a bodhisattva mentioned above. Every virtuous action they perform that is informed by great compassion and bodhicitta is transformed into an immeasurable and ever-expanding accumulation of merit directed toward the welfare of all sentient beings. By contrast, the merit of hearers and solitary realizers remains confined to the scope of their own personal liberation. This kind of love and compassion you can really train yourself in. It's like anything, as Shantideva has said, nothing doesn't become easier through familiarity. Nothing doesn't become, it's such a profound sentence or such a profound line. There's nothing that doesn't become easier through familiarity. So if you really just develop this thought, and of course some wisdom, some understanding should be there. But I find, for instance, why do we feel close to someone? Why do we feel, like when we went to high school, we may feel close to someone. Why? Because they shared the same taste in music, they dressed in the same way, they liked the same football team. I'm looking at his shirt. You may not recognize the football team. I know very little, but I know it's a German football club. So anyway, the point is, for random reasons. What's interesting, it's so random that for Tibetans, they feel close to someone when they come from the same area in Tibet. They call it Payul. So Payul means homeland, but Payul can also mean home area. So if in a Tibetan, when they come from the same area, they're like relatives, depending on the area. But usually like in the eastern, like for instance in Kham, in Amdo, there, if they're from the same area, they're like relatives right away. They don't care whether this person listens to this music or likes this, whatever. That's their main reason. So it shows it's just something you have in common. It's just basically something you have in common. You wanted to add something?
I just thought it was interesting because we have this phrase in the UK, like familiarity breeds contempt, like the complete opposite. Like the more familiar you are, like especially with married couples, like the more familiar you are, the more you like have this contempt.
Oh, that's a different kind of familiarity.
Yeah.
Okay, let me address that from. Yeah. Oh, right. Oh, okay.
Maybe it's attached.
That's a different one. That's a different one. Okay, but no. Before I repeat what you just said, that's also an important point because the word familiarity can really be misunderstood. But what I'm trying to say is this. What was I was trying to say? Oh my God! Now I forgot. What did I want to? What was I saying?
Think about the closeness and the Tibetan people who come.
Oh yes, exactly. So yeah, that's right. So the reason is we have something in common. How can we have love and compassion for all sentient beings? It's so simple. Everyone wants to be happy and no one wants to suffer. We have that in common with everyone. If that is a reason to feel close to others because we have something in common, everything else we have in common is pretty superficial. But on the deepest level, no matter who we meet, what language they speak, what area they come from, what customs they have, we meet them and we know they just want to be happy and they don't want to suffer. They want to live a happy life and that's it, whichever way they do it. So that is such a powerful reason to generate closeness. And it's such a powerful antidote because what are our main problems in the West? Some of our main problems in the West, let's face them, Tibetans don't have them. One is envy. Second?
Individuality, forceful individuality.
Individuality, yes. Another one? Shame. Yeah, feeling guilty. Guilt is the one. Shame, but guilty, feeling guilty. Okay, for that one, it's not that much one. That one, guilt is a different one. That has to do with emptiness and impermanence. It needs to be addressed with that. But I'm more thinking about where love and compassion really make a difference. What? Pardon?
Self-esteem, low self-esteem.
Low self-esteem, yes, that works as well. But another one.
Self-grasping, greed, selfishness.
Loneliness. Good old loneliness.
Loneliness comes because we force on individuality.
That is true. The root is really the sense of distance, like I'm over here. You're right, absolutely, that's true, but that's the cause. But I'm saying loneliness because Tibetans have gone to His Holiness so often, like I feel lonely. Tibetans, they have that word, but they hardly ever use it. I don't know Tibetans who say, I've never heard from a Tibetan say, I'm lonely. Never, ever. Right? Alone versus lonely. That's very different. I've never, ever heard. I don't think I know a single Tibetan who's ever felt lonely. Maybe if they live in the West. They grew up, in Europe or in the US, then maybe. So it's just not a sentiment they share with us. And it's true that, at least traditionally they don't. Now they're changing, of course, as well. But the point is that loneliness is like, I'm over here and they're like me against the rest of the world. And one very powerful method is to generate that love and compassion. Because usually we only generate love and compassion if others show us love and compassion. If others love us, then we love them back, right? Not always, depends on who they are. But usually, if someone shows us love, is kind to us, then we are kind back to them. But if they're rude to us, we're not. And if we don't know them, if they are indifferent towards us, so if you generate love and compassion for all sentient beings, it doesn't matter how they react towards you. You feel close to them anyway, and then there's no loneliness. You're close to everyone. How can we feel lonely? Everyone is a potential future friend. Because you have that love and compassion already. So when they start talking to you, you already feel close to them and they feel that and they react in a positive way. That's such a simple. So here we're not even talking about bodhisattvas on the highest level, dealing with the modern world. So simple, love and compassion. Guess why His Holiness keeps talking about we have to introduce love and compassion to modern education. Because His Holiness is very aware of the things that trouble us in the West, which is loneliness, feeling isolated, lack of self-confidence. It's all connected. You're absolutely right. The sense of me against everyone else, creating that distance that's actually not there. So just on that level, there's more to it, of course. We need to think of interdependence and emptiness, all that. But just from the point of view of love and compassion, so powerful, these states of mind. Right? And that's why His Holiness has said, he never said introduce emptiness in the schools. No, he's talked about love and compassion. That should become part of our schedule, of our syllabus in school. It's so simple. Train little children in that way, and they do that in Indian schools. I've heard the other day, 100,000 schools have adopted C-learning, which is 100,000 schools in India. India is showing us how to do it. And there's another country that also has adopted this until some obstacles arose, unfortunately. Ukraine. Because I know a monk who used to be my schoolmate, he's working for the C-learning project. And he told me about 100,000 schools in India and the Ukraine, that they were one of the forerunners in Europe adopting this. And then unfortunately the war started and they couldn't continue.
There was also a very big experiment done in Germany.
In Germany as well? Oh, okay, I'm not aware of that.
Meditation and love and compassion.
Oh, in schools? Nice. I didn't know that.
That's very old.
Very old? Oh, I had no idea.
No.
Not in the school I used to go to, where my nieces and nephews go to now. Okay, but anyway, so just to go back to what we study here, however advanced it may be, and however, what's the word, abstract this may be, this is just as relevant for us. So I didn't go through this much today. I'll go a little bit further through the text, but I want to bring this home. I want to show that none of this is for bodhisattvas and we're over here and this got nothing to do with us. This got everything to do with us as well, because we can apply this right away. It's actually that simple, except we need to keep doing it. Continuity is so important. Okay. In this context, the following debate arises regarding the previous 8 qualities. Remember? We went through them in the very beginning. It follows that they beautify a bodhisattva. Why is this so? If the answer is, for instance, that they enrich the bodhisattva, if the answer is that they show us this is what we should do, that was your answer, for instance, so what we should do to show us how to move beyond the ordinary, then it further follows that the latest bodhisattva quality that we just went through, which is described not as one that beautifies the bodhisattva, but a quality by which the bodhisattva surpasses or outshines hearers in solitude or realizers. It follows that this latest quality, outshining hearers in solitude, by means of the bodhisattva lineage, should likewise be included in the category of qualities that beautify a bodhisattva, for they enrich them, or because they show us how we can move from an ordinary person to an extraordinary quality, from an ordinary bodhisattva to an extraordinary person. However, why is it not included in that category? Right. Yeah, that's just a typical debate regarding the subject, this latest quality. It follows, it's also a quality that beautifies a bodhisattva. If you say, I agree, it follows it is not, because it's not mentioned as part of that. There are no 9 qualities mentioned, there are only 8. So how would you reply? This time I didn't spell out the debate. I wasn't at that point thinking about doing it. I could have added it later on, but then I forgot. Later on, anyway, it's just such a simple debate. It's not very long. Later on, I started, and I said that a few lessons ago, a few sessions before, that I actually started spelling out the debates, not in much detail, but just to get you a sense. This is what we're saying this is what the monks and nuns saying on the debate ground. Just the wordings translated into English. Yeah, but it comes later. They're longer kind of debates. This is pretty short. Yes, but something you could either debate on the debate ground using this particular language, but the language you understand, it's just a certain format. But even without using it, just why? Well, what's the difference between them? And the point is not so much to have an answer, but to make you think and reflect on the material further. All right. Furthermore, another way to look at it is concerning the qualities mentioned in verses 5 and 6, such as obtaining a meaningful title and being born into the lineage of the Tathagatas or Buddhas, it likewise follows that they outshine hearers and solitary realizers. So why? You see, now we looked at the last quality mentioned here and asked, why is this not mentioned as something that beautifies a bodhisattva? Or the other way around, why do some of the former qualities, why are they not described as qualities that outshine hearers and solitary realizers, right? Hearers and solitary realizers do not obtain the meaningful title of being a bodhisattva in the ultimate sense, or being born into the lineage of a Buddha, or the lineage of the Buddhas. So it likewise follows that they outshine hearers and solitary realizers. They're not just, yeah. If this is accepted, the question then arises, why are these qualities not included? Why are these qualities, so the earlier qualities, why are they not, these later qualities, I wasn't very clear on this. I got confused when I read it. I was like, what did I mean with this when I read it today? So why are these latest qualities not included in this earlier category of beautifying a bodhisattva? This I need to redo, it's kind of odd. I always give you an updated version. I find mistakes in them again and again. Or mistakes in the sense it's not clear enough. Lama Tsongkhapa next, okay, that's it, done with that part. Next cites a particular sutra called the Liberating Story of Maitreya Sutra. Okay, so we're done with these first 3 lines. Hopefully we were able to, well, go through them in such a way that, first of all, the debate became clear, going back to the previous material, how on the debate ground that would be a typical discussion. It's just a minor one, but still. And secondly, how everything we've learned here is also relevant to us. This incredible love and compassion that a bodhisattva has, we can develop already now. We can work on ourselves now. Okay. Now, before I'll give more time for questions. I'll give some time for questions. Let's go a little bit because the next part is not that difficult. So Lama Tsongkhapa then gives a particular quote, like a quote of a sutra, of course referring always back to the words of the Buddha himself, the sutras. Sometimes the Tibetan tradition is unjustly so accused of not really following the Buddha. It's kind of like one commentary over the other. But if we really read the Lama Tsongkhapa or other great masters of the different traditions, they always quote the sutras. They do, but we don't have the translation of the text necessarily. Lama Tsongkhapa quotes the sutras a lot. He's saying, look, in the Maitreya Sutra, which is taught by the Buddha, it says it there, that what Acharya Chandrakirti just said in verse number 8, in verse 8, the basis for saying so is the sutra, is what the Buddha has said. But we may not recognize that. So here, again, because these sutras are very poetic and it's not always clear that this is what they're teaching. So here it says, child of the lineage, Rikipu. You know that from the Heart Sutra, right? Son and daughter of the lineage. What does that even mean? What lineage? What does that mean? The lineage of the, I guess you could here say, those interested, those aspiring towards the universal vehicle, because it's a sutra of the universal vehicle, the liberating story of Maitreya Sutra. So maybe that's what it means. I mean, in the Heart Sutra, what does it mean? Rikipu, or child of the lineage, or son or daughter of the lineage. What does it mean? Anyone read the commentaries of the Heart Sutra? Or if you did, do you remember? I don't remember either. I seem to remember it means like someone who aspires towards the universal vehicle. Someone interested, sort of that kind of, but I have to look it up, I don't remember now. So child of the lineage is probably similar here. So addressing us, or addressing the person to whom the sutra was addressed. It is like this. The son of a king. So this is now saying a bodhisattva from the point of view of bodhicitta is like, so from the point of view of method is here seen as like being born into a family, into a royal family. Whereas wisdom would be your education, right? Does that make kind of sense? Yeah. So as a son of a king born not long ago, so still quite young, bears the name of royalty. And because of the greatness of his family lineage, he outshines the entire assembly of senior and chief ministers at court. Right? In the past, it was like that. The prince had a higher standing than all these very clever kind of ministers and everything, simply because they were the king's son. Likewise, the bodhisattva on the beginner stage, who was generated awakening mind not so long ago. So here it's on the first ground. A bodhisattva on the first ground, it's not that long ago, because only the first ground. So here, from the point of view of just bodhicitta, having generated the awakening mind not so long ago, has been born into the lineage of the sovereigns of Dharma. The sovereigns of Dharma is another word of the Buddhas. The Buddhas, as are described sometimes, in English less so, but in the Tibetan text, the sovereigns of Dharma, the Tathagatas, the Buddhas. Because of his awakening mind, so the awakening mind is bodhicitta, and compassion, the Bodhisattva outshines the heroes and solitary realizers who've practiced pure conduct over a long time. So actually, even if the Bodhisattva, even if the heroes and solitary realizers are much more advanced on their relative path, the Bodhisattva, because of this love and compassion, are said to outshine the heroes and solitary realizers, not in terms of their understanding and so forth, but in terms of their method, that is their love and compassion. Does that make sense? So this is what this is saying here. So two metaphors are given, one of the king and the prince, and then the next one is of a Garuda, this kind of mythical bird. So it's not that difficult, so I just quickly go through it. So the first metaphor is that of a young prince. A child newly born into royalty immediately inherits the name and status of the lineage, and by the greatness of that lineage already outshines even the senior ministers at court with their long experience and authority. In the same way, when a bodhisattva newly generates the ultimate awakening mind and reaches the first ground, they are born into the lineage of the Tathagatas. We heard that word used, right? The lineage of the Buddhas. The line of Buddhas that belong now to this kind of group of great beings, the sovereigns of the Dharma, by virtue of their great compassion and conventional bodhicitta. That birth itself bestows a status and power. So status in the sense of us benefiting from that status, and power in that they influence us positively. Here, not power in the worldly sense, that surpass the heroes and solitary realizers, even though those practitioners may have cultivated pure discipline and other qualities for a great length of time and have even attained personal liberation. Right? So, yeah, this is, again, like this way of teaching. Who would teach what we've learned so far? Liberating the story of Maitreya Sutra. Would you understand that this is what this sutra is saying? Probably not, right? If I just given you the sutra and like, what is the Buddha saying here? At that time, it was pretty clear, the examples, etc. But of course, here Lama Tsongkhapa helps us to understand that. Yes? Yes?
So is the compassion that's generated in the four immeasurables great compassion?
Pardon?
Is the compassion that's generated in the four immeasurables, by all beings, people, suffering,
Mm-hmm. Is that great? When we, okay, the four immeasurables.
But it's bodhicitta is the defining characteristic, right?
Right.
The Just what your intention is. Not
So great compassion is great compassion contained in the practice of the four immeasurables. The four immeasurables, the prayer of the four immeasurables we did today. The practice, of course, would mean to actually meditate on that, put that into practice. So may all sentient beings be free from suffering and the causes of suffering. Is that in itself great compassion or not? Does that qualify for great compassion? What is the definition of great compassion? We went through it on the first day. Is that... Pardon?
You understand the suffering and you want to protect other beings to suffer.
Ah, she added something. You want to protect. I personally want to bring this about. So this is a discussion we had in the past, right? There's this whole debate, actually, because there's this whole debate. What is the difference between compassion and great compassion? There's a great debate, though. We debate that a lot. So, for instance, do hearers and solitude realize that as practitioners of the foundational vehicle have great compassion? Usually the texts say no. But some texts, the way they define great compassion, that can't be right. Because how is great compassion sometimes defined? As the wish for all sentient beings to be free from suffering and its causes. Why would a hearer or solitude realizer not have that wish? They have incredible love and compassion. I mean, sometimes in our debates, we would say, yeah, they wish for immeasurable sentient beings to be free from suffering, but not all. So then as a debate person, you say, so which ones do they exclude? No answer, right? Because they don't distinguish. They're totally impartial. We should not underestimate the incredible qualities of practitioners of the foundational vehicle. So they have this indiscriminate love and compassion for all sentient beings. They do. But we don't call it great compassion. Now, where is the difference? You wish for all sentient beings. Therefore, the definition that is sometimes given in the texts, in the debate, is not necessarily accepted. An affectionate mind that wishes for all sentient beings to be free from suffering and its causes, putting it that way. What is it that's different for a bodhisattva? She said it just now. I'm not sure.
Personally,
Yes, you want to personally bring this about. You bring yourself in, as in like, and I'll take responsibility. I'll do that. That's not part of the path of foundational vehicle, because here it's like either thinking I can't do this, or it's not even possible. I can't. Why would I, do that? Because it's not possible. Aidan, do you agree? Yes. Okay. Oh, I was hoping you would debate back. Not this time. All right. Okay. Great. So therefore, in answer to what Aidan said earlier on, so the kind of compassion that is part of the four immeasurables is all sentient beings. May they be free? Of course, yes, absolutely. However, it doesn't say may I. It doesn't bring ourselves in, right? So therefore, it's slightly different. Just that part is different. But maybe there are some, I'm not saying that, I mean, you could argue maybe there are some practitioners of the foundational vehicle who have generated it, but based on that, they don't act on it in that way and still aim for liberation first. That would be another debate. I mean, who knows? But it's definitely not necessary for them in order to generate, or in order for them to develop self-liberation or to achieve self-liberation. You want to add something?
Yes.
Yeah.
I wanted to say, because also these hearers and solitary,
Yeah.
also hearers and solitary realizers teach a lot of people, no? In Dharma.
Exactly.
So if they don't work only for their own liberation, they also want others to know something about Dharma and go further on the way towards enlightenment.
The benefit of the sentient.
However you call it. It's different. I know there's a difference between liberation and enlightenment, but
yeah, absolutely. They go out of their way to benefit others. Absolutely. That is totally. But here it's the point is like to lead all other sentient beings to liberation, to personally take them to liberation and even further enlightenment. That is different, right? Yeah. Okay. Great. So let's do a little bit more, and then that's the last bit about the Garuda. And then we can start. If you have questions, you're welcome to ask. So, child of the lineage, it goes on to say, it is like this. Okay, continue on with another analogy. The newborn offspring of a Garuda, the king of birds, has qualities, strength of wings, total clarity of vision, and so on, that do not exist in mature birds of all other breeds. Likewise, a bodhisattva who's generated the first ground of the awakening mind and has thus perfectly penetrated the ongoing lineage of the great Garuda-like Tathagatas has qualities, the powerful wings of his generation of awakening mind, aspiring for the omniscient state, a power eclipsing others like the wings of a Garuda offspring, and the clarity of his vision of utterly pure altruistic intention that do not exist in Shravakas or in all the Pratyeka Buddhas that have definitely shunned cyclic existence for hundreds or for 1,000 eons. Okay, so the second metaphor is that of a newly hatched Garuda. Now, Garudas in Indian mythology and Buddhist literature, the Garuda is a legendary bird. You may see the Garuda sometimes in paintings, religious paintings, but this is taken on as like this legendary kind of, mythological kind of bird, often described as the king of birds. It is immense in size with a vast wingspan, tremendous speed, and eyes that see with perfect clarity. Many stories portray the Garuda as so powerful that it can soar effortlessly across the sky and even overpower mighty nagas or serpent spirits. So sometimes you see it like with like these serpent beings. It's just part of the culture, the whole mythology and stuff. So yes, you may recognize, actually on the throne of His Holiness, I believe there's like, at the very top, there's a Garuda birds with like snakes around it, I think. It's like usually like the back part of like a throne. I seem to remember that. So anyway, having said that, a Garuda chick, the moment it hatches, already has wing strength and vision far beyond what any fully matured bird of another species or lineage could ever attain. Its greatness comes not from effort or training, but from its very species or lineage as a Garuda. In the same way, when bodhisattvas on the first ground newly generate the ultimate awakening mind and enter the lineage of the Tathagatas, they are like these infant Garudas in comparison to the hearers and solitary realizers, even if they're much more advanced, that immediately possess, simply by belonging to this lineage, to this type. Again, type is the better word, right? This species. They immediately possess qualities that hearers, Their conventional bodhicitta functions like mighty wings. That's a beautiful way of looking at it, right? That the mighty wings of bodhicitta, it's so expansive, like all sentient beings. That's why we say bodhicitta is expansive, it's extensive. Wisdom is deep, bodhicitta extends to all sentient beings. So like mighty wings, carrying them toward the omniscient state of Buddhahood, while their utterly pure altruistic intention, their great compassion, gives them a clarity of vision that others cannot match. Thus, even though hearers and solitary realizers may have turned away from cyclic existence for hundreds or even thousands of eons, owing to their strong renunciation, their practice is directed only toward their personal liberation. By contrast, the great compassion and awakening mind of a bodhisattva, at only the very first ground, grant them a power and vision that already eclipse those of the foundational practitioners. So this is not to put down or to humiliate any other practitioners. It's more like a Buddhist advertising, right? If you already feel more comfortable with the foundational vehicle, fine, then usually there's already they get a strong connection and no one is going to try to sway you from it. But if you're still undecided, it's actually faster, because eventually everyone who's entered the foundational vehicle, who aims for self-liberation, will enter the bodhisattva path and become a Buddha. Everyone will, from this point of view, from the point of view of this tradition. However, it is faster to enter the bodhisattva path first, they say. So they say, right? So we'll find out if we choose that way, I guess. But the point is, so the scriptures are very clear. This is faster. And therefore, for the benefit of all sentient beings, this is better. out of compassion for others. This is better. Okay. I guess that should do for today. Okay. Any questions? Yes, please.
I have one question, but did I understand it correctly that like a big part of compassion is like taking on responsibility, like to bring other beings like to enlightenment or like to liberation?
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, isn't this like a heavy burden and kind of like an attachment to a goal that is like out of your control?
Okay, so here's a question. When you practice great compassion, so a great part of practicing great compassion is taking personal responsibility for the welfare of other sentient beings. But his question is, doesn't that mean it's a great burden? And secondly, doesn't it mean you generate attachment? Attachment for sentient beings or liberation or enlightenment?
Like kind of attachment for a goal?
For goal, yes. Okay. Yes. Yeah, well, that's an interesting one. Two things, the burden and the attachment, right? Two aspects. I think I addressed the burden before a little bit, right? Kind of like a burden in the sense also, we discussed it, I think maybe during the first lesson. Sometimes people feel, great compassion. You have to think about the suffering of sentient beings. That must suck. You know, like, I mean, there's enough suffering around me. And seeing it is already so depressing. My own suffering is depressing enough. And so I don't really want to hear much about others. And then I have to reflect on other sentient beings? Are you kidding me? That is leading me to depression, like long-term depression right away. It feels that way, doesn't it? Yeah, that's a very common question, very common concern. I have to, if I want for all sentient beings to be free from suffering and its causes, I have to understand what it means and have to think of the suffering of all sentient beings. And in response to that, we had this discussion, what about a doctor? Someone who trains to become a doctor, right? In order to become a doctor, they generate the wish, may I become a doctor? May I be able to help sentient beings to overcome all their diseases? And then they learn, they join like some kind of, I don't know, medical program, like join university, and then they fall into a depression. Oh my God, there's so many sicknesses. I never knew. Oh my God, there's even more every year, new ones. So what happens to the doctor, right? Or when they're then going to hospital, oh my God, I just want to run. Or are they, whoa, oh my gosh, all these diseases I never knew, so much I can do. Another case, like these series, like, when they show these ER, I remember when I was like, before, I guess they still showed them when I was still in Germany, I forget now, but emergency room and these, I watched them and they weren't like, oh, I'm so depressed, it was like an accident, everyone is running and, oh yeah, here's surgery. So they seem to thrive, like, whoa, there's so much suffering, I can do something, right? Like a doctor, that's their passion. So they don't see suffering as in like something depressing. No, a disease is something depressing, but something that can be cured. And that they personally can cure. So I don't think it's like a burden, it's a challenge. It's something meaningful, it's something they, like when they talk about great compassion, they actually say it gives you this incredible energy because there's so much work to be done. Yes, Aidan, you want to say something?
It depends how you feel about Buddha nature.
Pardon?
Depends how you feel about Buddha nature.
Oh, okay, so Aidan is arguing, well, it depends on how you think about Buddha nature.
So if you believe all beings already are Buddha.
Yes.
There's two ways you can give out. One is a potential and one they're actually already Buddha.
All right. So Aidan is saying it depends. There's a difference between saying believing that they have the potential to become Buddhas and believing they're already Buddhas. Okay, go on.
So if you believe they're already Buddhas,
yes,
then I think it's less, you might say less depressing because you know it can happen, it's already there. Right? It's not like if you just thought you had to relieve all the suffering.
Right.
It wasn't even possible maybe.
Right.
That might be depressing. If you start from the fact that they have Buddha nature, then
he's making a good point. He's saying if you look at Buddha nature in such a way that you don't just look at it as a potential, because that doesn't seem enough, but rather they're already enlightened, then their suffering is not such a big deal. He's got a good point there. What Aidan is referring to here is that in the Tibetan Buddhist traditions, for instance, in the Gelug tradition, they don't really say all sentient beings are already Buddhas. They don't emphasize that, at least not in all of their writings. They say much more like, they say that you have everything to become a Buddha. But then saying, well, not everyone, there are still sentient beings and Buddhas. Well, in the other traditions, there's the emphasis different. They're really not saying something, they're not saying we're all Buddhas, literally, we're all Buddha Shakyamuni, but there's more emphasis on the have and not the have not. And so, therefore, I think Aidan has got a good point there. If you look at all sentient beings much more from the point of view of what they are already versus, then it's not such a big deal. Does that make sense? I really like that answer. But of course, it's just what I'm saying. I don't know how you feel that, I mean, whether you feel that way, but I like that. Does that, think about it. I'm just talking about the burden part.
Yeah, it makes sense.
Okay,
How about
makes
second
sense.
part?
Pardon?
How about
The second part, the burden and the attachment. Oh, the attachment. That is so interesting. How we bring all our afflictions into the Buddhist path in the beginning. Absolutely. Right? I mean, honestly, of course there's religious, how would you call that in English? Like, you know, like ideally as a Buddhist, you should respect all religions, and still you're attached to your own religion. There's attachment to your own religion. There's attachment to your tradition. There's attachment to your Lama. There's so much attachment. We start off with it. And initially it's there. So I remember Jetsuma Tenzin Palmo, she said, like, it's so hard when you become a nun. Yeah, suddenly you look totally different from one day to the next. It feels like your entire life has changed, except your mind is still the same. So like now you bring, it doesn't change within one day. Your haircut, your outer experience is totally transformed. Others may not recognize you, but the mind doesn't change that quickly. So you bring in all your attachments and all your anger, and yes, you'd now transfer it. I mean, people are attached to their lamas. That's why you have lama groupies, right? Always want to be around the lama, always want to be seen. Just going to His Holiness's teachings, trying to get a seat close to His Holiness, or do not dare to put something on top of my seat, like in the past. Yeah, unfortunately, that's what we do. And even with enlightenment, in the beginning, we have no understanding what enlightenment really means, and we're attached to it. But the thing is, being aware of that, being mindful, over time, you engage in the right kind of practices, and then naturally it will reduce, because everything you do in order to become enlightened is an antidote to the afflictions. In fact, Buddhist practice can be defined as a practice to reduce the afflictions, including attachment. Therefore, you cannot move on in your practice without reducing the afflictions. And so slowly you will move away from, having a crush on your Lama, for instance. Definitely that happens. People having crushes, or not in a bizarre way, not in that way, but still wanting to be around the Lama, etc., and being attached. But then slowly that'll fall away. Your attachment becomes less and less because you're engaging in practice. If you don't do that, of course, then your attachment remains the same or even grows stronger. Possible. Yeah. Does that make sense?
Kind of.
Ideally. Ideally.
There's this Chinese saying that you can lead a horse to the water, but you cannot force it to drink. And for me, when the compassion part speaks about responsibility, it really sounds like you kind of want to force somebody to better. And in so many real life experiences, as soon as there's attachment to them becoming better,
right.
It doesn't help at all. The opposite.
You're right. Okay, that's a good point.
Kind of their progress because
yeah.
kind of take off them the responsibility and also the agency that they have to change by themselves.
Yes,
otherwise it's not sustainable.
Right. Okay, so you're saying you cannot lead a horse to the water, but you can't force it to drink. That is true. And so if we want to for the benefit of all sentient beings, we could wish to do so, but in the end they have to practice. That is true. That's the thing. It's like It's kind of like saying you need two hands to clap, right? I'm the hand, all sentient beings are the other one. For them to lead to enlightenment, I can contribute, but if they don't want to go there, then there's nothing I can do. There's always both sides, always two sides. There's never like just a single, whatever it is, right? In every situation, you always have two, at the very least. You know, if you have the karma to be killed, you need someone to kill you, and so forth. You know, the examples are endless. So in your example, absolutely. But from my side, I want to do whatever I can to be ready. And I have no deadline. By that time, you should be able to have at least 5 people should be liberated by the time you've been a Buddha for a few. No, it's not like that. But from your side, you're doing everything you can. You reach that state, and then you're able to benefit in the greatest way. That's a bit like becoming a doctor. You don't know whether people come to see you as their patient. You know, maybe no one comes to see you, but you're still trained to be a doctor, that when people come to see you and are ready to receive your treatment, you're there. A bit like that. And there's one last thing I want to say. I forgot. Remind me of your name. Familiarity leads to contempt. Yeah. Neve, that's right. Neve, sorry. Neve, yeah. You told me last time, but I forgot. So Neve said, well, what about that familiarity thing? And that's very good. Familiarity leads to contempt. I think, well, what do you think? When we say familiarity is a good thing, familiarity, there's nothing that becomes easier through familiarity. And there she is and says, let's make that your homework. That's your homework. I really like that. Doesn't that seem to be contradictory? But doesn't that seem to contradict the saying, familiarity, does it say leads? Breeds. Oh yeah. Familiarity breeds contempt.
What is contempt?
What is contempt?
What is contempt?
Like when you kind of like a verse and kind of your sort of like you wanna, how would you say it?
Like kind of like sick of it.
When you don't like it.
Like
You're a bit like, oh.
You get tired of the other.
Like you're bored of this, you get tired of this, and you want something new.
So get tired, that we're saying you were tired of someone. Frustrated. Yeah. So familiarity, kind of like, you know, like you would always be kind to the bus driver, but when it comes to your own partner, like, oh, you're so annoying, right? That kind of contempt. Yeah. I mean, that's what Jetsunma Denzin Pama once said. The people we're closest, we would never treat a stranger the way we sometimes treat someone we're really close to, right? We say the harshest things to them. So that, because of familiarity possibly, and so on. So wouldn't that contradict what I said earlier? Through familiarity, as Shantideva, quoting Shantideva, there's nothing that doesn't become easier through familiarity. That's your homework. Okay, great. Thank you very much. And let's dedicate the last action. Now we know, or you probably knew before, but still, having talked about why it's important. All right. So, as you probably remember, we recite a prayer that is for the long life of our great masters who embody the teachings, like His Holiness the Dalai Lama and all other great beings, that they may continue. Here His Holiness is specifically mentioned, but it should include all, that they may continue to teach us through their words and their actions. But then also the next two, although it doesn't talk about enlightenment, but specifically focus on, may this become a cause for our bodhicitta and for our wisdom to become the causes for enlightenment. And of course we dedicate for the enlightenment, our own enlightenment, for the benefit of all sentient beings. All right, so with this in mind, in the snow-encircled land, you are the source of benefit and bliss. Avalokiteshvara Denzin Gyatso, please remain in life until samsara ends. May the precious Bodhi mind, not yet born, arise and grow. May that born have no decline, but increase forevermore. May the precious view of emptiness, not yet born, arise and grow. May that born have no decline, but increase forevermore. Okay, thank you, and have a great weekend.